Hello and welcome to a special broadcast tracking COVID-19, and in the next half an hour we'll get you all the updates on COVID from across the country and the world. I am Nancy Kohli, but first a look at the top stories. The government extends the lockdown for further 2 weeks beyond the 3rd of May, issues new guidelines to regulate different activities based on risk profiling of districts into red, green and orange zones. The Health Ministry categorizes 130 districts in the red zone, 284 in orange and 319 in the green zone. All the metro cities including Delhi and Mumbai declared as the red zone. The containment areas to include red and orange zones will have intensified surveillance protocol with contact tracing and house-to-house surveillance. To also have provision for home and institutional quarantine of the high-risk persons. All the economic activities to begin across green zones except those prohibited nationally. The Home Ministry allows all the goods traffic without any pass requirement. The government allows the movement of migrant workers, tourists, students and other persons stranded at different places by special Shramik trains. Prime Minister Modi holds a comprehensive review meetings on civil aviation, power sector and the education sector, discusses reforms for enhancing efficiency of the power sector, also reviews strategies for making civil aviation sector more efficient. The Chief of the Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, announces armed forces will express gratitude to all the Corona warriors on the 3rd of May. The armed forces to conduct flypast, shower petals on the hospitals and illuminate the naval vessels. Active COVID-19 cases across India rise to 26,167 with 9,950 recoveries and 1,218 fatalities. Maharashtra, Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh remain the worst hit. The Health Minister urges all to follow social distancing norms at all times. And COVID cases continue to spiral up across the world. The infections worldwide crosses grim milestone of 33 lakh with over 2.38 lakh deaths. The US grants emergency approval to experimental drug remdesivir. And first, let's take stock of the developments in India, Ground Zero. And beginning with the latest update on COVID-19, the number of active cases of COVID-19 in the country have now gone up to 26,167. While 9,950 people have recovered from the COVID pandemic, the country has reported a total of 1,218 deaths so far. Maharashtra remains the hardest hit with the 11,506 cases, nearly 30% of the cases in the country. And after a comprehensive review and in view of the lockdown measures having led to significant gains in the COVID-19 situation in the country, the Home Affairs Ministry issued an order under the Disaster Management Act 2005 to further extend the lockdown for a further period of 2 weeks with effect from the 4th of May. The Home Affairs Ministry also issued new guidelines to regulate different activities in this period based on the risk profiling of the districts of the country into red, that's the hotspot, green and the orange zones. The guidelines have permitted considerable relaxations in the districts falling in the green and the orange zones. And talking about the criteria, in fact, for the identification of the districts as red, green and orange zones have been spelled out in detail by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and of course prohibited throughout through that the activities prohibited throughout the country irrespective of the zone. And while those in fact talk about the hospitality and other than those used for housing, health, police and government officials, the healthcare workers and all the cinema halls, shopping malls, gymnasiums, sports complexes, swimming pools, these are all activities prohibited throughout the country irrespective of what zone it is, whether red, green or orange, but all the social, political, sports, all of those activities prohibited. And also in fact the activities prohibited are all the domestic and international air travel, except for medical services, all the passenger movement by trains except for security purposes or for the purposes as permitted by the Home Affairs Ministry. Now, in fact, they're talking about the activities allowed in the red zone, and those include private offices, but that can only operate with up to 33% strength, and all the industrial and construction activities permitted, but of course with some conditions there. And activities allowed in the red zone are all the industrial and construction activities in rural areas, including the Manrega works, all the agricultural activity, in fact all of that permitted in the red zone. And all the government offices shall function with senior officers of the level of the Deputy Secretary and above at full strength, and the remaining staff attending up to 33% as per requirement. Those are some of the activities allowed in the red zone. And also in fact included in the red zone print and electronic media, the IT and IT enabled services, data and call centers, and cold storage and warehousing services. Also activities allowed are shops selling essential goods in the markets and market complexes permitted. E-commerce activities also permitted only in respect of essential goods. Manufacturing of the IT hardware, jute industry with staggered shifts and social distancing, construction activities and construction of renewable energy projects also allowed in the red zone. And public utilities, that's the utilities in power, water, sanitation, and courier and postal services also allowed to operate in the red zone. Special economic zones, the industrial establishments in urban areas, manufacturing units of essential goods also allowed in the red zone. And let's now talk about orange zone, about what all activities are allowed. So four-wheeler vehicles will have maximum 2 passengers besides the driver, and pillion riding that will be allowed on two-wheelers. This is about the orange zone, the activities allowed. In addition to activities permitted in the red zone, taxis and cab aggregators will be permitted with 1 driver and 2 passengers only. Also, the inter-district movement of individuals and vehicles will be allowed for permitted activities only in the orange zone. And talking about the green zone, well, all the activities are permitted except the limited number of activities that are prohibited throughout the country irrespective of the zone. And in the green zone, the buses can operate with up to 50% seating capacity, and bus depots also can operate, but subject to certain conditions. And let's talk about now certain directives that have been issued for public spaces. In fact, if you can have that graphic for you, there you have it. The marriage related gathering shall ensure social distancing where guests should not be more than 50, and funeral and last rites wearing face cover is also made compulsory. Ensuring social distancing is something of course public places, the directives for which have been issued. No organization shall allow gathering of more than 5 people. Spitting in the public places also punishable offence in public places. And guidelines have also been issued for workplaces, in fact making sure that social distancing is the norm here as well. Persons above 65 years of age, comorbidities, pregnant women to stay at home except for essential requirements. These are the directives for workplaces. Arogya Setu mobile app has in fact been made mandatory for all the employees at workplaces. Ensuring social distancing and company transport and face cover compulsory at workplaces. Intensive communication and training on good hygiene practices that must take place at workplaces, one of the very important national directives being issued for workplaces. And hospitals, clinics authorized to treat COVID-19 patients should be identified, and such a list should be available at workplaces at all the times. Large physical meetings are to be avoided at workplaces as well. Thermal scanning, hand wash, sanitizer at workplaces has to be a must. Adequate gaps between shifts, staggering lunch break also to be ensured, and frequent sanitization of the entire workplace that should take place intermittently, one of the national directives for workplaces. And Indian Railways is operating, in fact, Shramik special trains to move the stranded labourers, pilgrims, tourists and students around the country. And following the request of the various state governments, the Shramik trains are being operated to ferry the stranded people from different parts of the country. Tickets would not be issued to any individual passenger or groups and allow only those passengers whom the state government officials will bring to the railway stations to board. The state government would be the final authority to decide who will travel. Earlier, the Home Affairs Ministry had allowed the movement of stranded persons such as students, migrant workers, tourists, pilgrims via rail as well. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a comprehensive meeting to review the strategies that could help in making India's civil aviation sector more efficient. And during the meeting, the centre decided to reduce the flying time to benefit the travelling public, also help the airline save the cost in close cooperation with the Department of Military Affairs. The Ministry of Civil Aviation has been asked to expedite the process of handing over of 6 more airports on PPP basis to generate more revenue. The ministry decided to complete all the reform initiatives in a time-bound manner. Prime Minister Modi held a meeting to deliberate on the issues and reforms required in education sector, including the national education policy. Special emphasis was given on the use of technology in the education sector and enhancing learning and adapting the use of technology such as online classes, education portal and class-wise broadcast on dedicated education channels. The focus was on bringing uniformity in education, providing universal access to quality education, improving the quality of elementary education through a new national curriculum framework that focuses on multilinguistic, 21st century skills, integration of sport and art and environmental issues, and reforming the higher education scenario by making the Indian education system at par with the highest global standards, making education effective, inclusive, contemporary, rooted in the Indian culture and ethos. Overall, the emphasis was given on the early childhood care and education, foundational literacy and numeracy, adapting contemporary pedagogy, preserving the cultural and linguistic diversity of India with a special focus on early vocalization of education. It was decided to usher in education reforms to create a vibrant knowledge society by ensuring higher quality education to all, thereby making India a global knowledge superpower. And to achieve these goals and to ensure efficient educational governance, extensive use of technology, including the artificial intelligence, will be promoted. Now, the armed forces will express their gratitude to all the corona warriors by conducting flypasts and showering petals on the hospitals treating COVID-19 patients and illuminating naval vessels, the Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, said. Addressing a special press briefing along with the 3 service chiefs, General Rawat said that the nation stood together and showed resilience in dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Air Force will be conducting flypasts from Srinagar to Thiruvananthapuram. You will see other flypasts happening from the east in Dibrugarh, right across the length and breadth of the country towards Kutch in Gujarat. The flypasts will be conducted by fixed-wing aircraft and the fighter wings and the fighter aircraft. There will also be showering of petals from helicopters in hospitals across the country which have been involved in saving our people from COVID-19.
The Navy on its part will have its warships deployed in formations in coastal areas in the evening on the 3rd of May. The Navy warships would also be lit up and their choppers would be used for showering petals on the hospitals treating COVID-19 patients. The Army will be conducting mounted band displays along some COVID-19 hospitals in almost every district. The armed forces will also lay wreath at the police memorial on the day in support of our police forces. The BJP National President JP Nadda held a video conferencing with renowned lawyers of the country and discussed the lockdown situation. Appealing for a decisive fight against COVID-19, Nadda suggested to get the Arogya app downloaded in all the mobile phones. He added that each person must get Arogya app downloaded in the mobile phones of 40 other persons to keep the epidemic under control. The lawyers present at the meeting suggested ways to deal with the epidemic and discussed various legalities. The BJP president holds such meetings through video conference with prominent personalities at regular intervals, including with the party workers, the MPs and the central ministers amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, 200 new mandis from 7 states joined the Enam platform for marketing agricultural produce. They include 94 mandis of Rajasthan, 27 mandis of Tamil Nadu, 25 mandis each from Uttar Pradesh and Gujarat, 16 mandis of Odisha, 11 mandis of Andhra Pradesh and 2 mandis of Karnataka. This will bring the total number of Enam mandis in the country to 785. This is the first milestone achieved in the path of integrating 415 new markets across the country. It is for the first time that Karnataka has been added to the list of Enam states. Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar has said that by the end of this month, there will be around 1,000 mandis that will join the Enam platform. He said Prime Minister Modi's vision of using technology for the benefit of the farmers will soon be realized. Enam has come a long way with 1,66 lakh farmers and 1,28,000 traders having registered on Enam platform. It facilitates trade beyond mandi and state borders. And moving on now, fake stories do not hold ground for long, and in order to keep such rumors at bay, every day we get you some Mythbusters. The first one we take up today was a fake news from Jammu and Kashmir. It was claimed by the news portal Greater Kashmir that Centre has shifted service matters of employees of J&K and Ladakh to the Chandigarh CAT. While the truth is that the tribunal bench will continue sittings in J&K to dispose of the service matters of the central government employees. And the second one is related to a claim made through a WhatsApp message that says that government is providing 4,000 rupees scholarship for English medium students to study at home digitally. Now a link has been provided to apply for the same, while the truth is that there is no such scheme under the central government. The last one we are creating awareness about is related to a social media claim that free masks are being distributed by the government under Prime Minister's Mask Yojana. A link is also provided for the placement of orders, and the truth is that there is no such scheme and the link is fraudulent. We request all the citizens, all of you, to not spread fake news and also refrain from falling in trap of such perpetrators. And let's now move on, take a look at some of the updates that inspire hope and positivity in tackling the COVID-19 outbreak. Delhi police is proving to be no less than a masiha for the people residing in West Delhi. Amid the COVID-19 pandemic, they are delivering medicines to ailing senior citizens, providing essentials on just a call. What makes the whole effort so special is that they even try to make special days more special by celebrating them, especially for those who have no one else to share their happiness with. Take a look.
This is Chanda, a resident of Janakpuri in West Delhi. 70 years is not the age to stay alone, but lockdown has left no options for her. Children live in another city, daughter lives with husband in Dwarka, and the only support she has is the Delhi police. They are helping her in all possible ways, even by celebrating her birthday.
पुलिस वाले हमारी बहुत मदद करते हैं और फ़ोन करके भी पूछते हैं कि बहन जी आपको किस चीज़ की ज़रूरत है, जहाँ आपको कुछ चाहिए, जहाँ आप ठीक ठाक हो, ये सब.
There are over 6,136 senior citizens like Chanda in West Delhi. Out of the total, over 2,790 such citizens reside in Rajouri Gardens subdivision alone. 24th March, when the lockdown began, Delhi police visited their homes over 11,116 times and over 11,947 times called them to know about their well-being. 41 of them were those who were provided medicines, milk, dry ration and mask-like facilities were ensured. Senior citizen Sarvanand Singh, resident of Subhash Nagar, validate police's claims.
लॉकडाउन में उनकी काफ़ी प्रॉब्लम्स है. सीनियर सिटीजन सारे कुछ न कुछ बीमारी होती है, किसी को डायबिटीज़ है, हाइपरटेंशन है, तो उनको दवाइयाँ दिलाना से लेके उनका हॉस्पिटल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, उनकी कोई भी इशू थी, उनकी फूड रिलेटेड इशू, हमारे बीट कांस्टेबल्स ने इस दौरान 11,116 विजिट्स करी है सीनियर सिटीजन्स को इस तरह की हेल्प करने की.
और मैं कई बार हेड को तो फ़ोन आते रहता है, कभी वहाँ से फ़ोन था, हाँ भी कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं आपको. मैंने कहा नहीं, हमारा सब कुछ कर रहे हैं, पुलिस डिपार्टमेंट सब हमारी देखभाल कर रहे हैं.
Delhi police had a special dedicated senior citizen cell which works for the safety and well-being of the senior citizens of Delhi. Delhi government has made 1077 or 1077 the COVID-19 helpline number for senior citizens in the national capital. Dheeraj Singh's report, DD News, New Delhi.
Let's now move on and scan through the developments from across the globe in World Wrap. US President Donald Trump has said that the US Food and Drug Administration has granted authorization to Gilead Sciences Inc. for emergency use of its experimental antiviral drug remdesivir to treat patients with COVID-19. Gilead has donated 1.5 million vials of the drug to help the patients. President Trump has expressed hope that the US will come in under 1 lakh lives lost due to COVID-19. So far, the number of known infections nationwide had climbed to well over 11 lakh, including 64,789 deaths. And in New York, all the state schools would stay closed for the rest of the academic year due to COVID-19. The city governor announced this even as hospitalizations and the daily death toll fell to their lowest levels in more than a month. And let's now move on and get you a look as to what activities are allowed in the orange and green zones. Let's take a look at that through our graphics. Well, once again, in the orange zones, activities allowed are, of course, people can, with certain restrictions, use private four-wheelers and two-wheelers, cabs, taxis, and people can in fact also go to marketplace, attend offices, drive their vehicles and open their shops and workplaces, use buses to travel. This is all about green zone. The activities allowed, people can also in fact, like I said, go to marketplaces and attend offices and in green zones, but what remains is that other than those nationally prohibited, all the economic activities, all the shops, all the establishments and all offices to become functional. And that was about what activities are allowed really in the green zone. So, but those activities except those prohibited nationally. Well, that's all we have for you in this edition of Tracking COVID-19. But before we wrap up, we are leaving you with this song dedicated to all the frontline workers, the Corona Warriors. Take a look at that and thanks for being with us.